Hello everybody. Happy Halloween. I'm glad that you decided to click on this video and join me for our second episode of It's a Storied World, our Halloween episode, where I'm going to be reading a very, very spooky story for you all today. Now today's also very special for me because if you remember from the last video, I'm pagan now, and this is actually my first ever Samhain as a pagan. So I am looking forward to it, and I hope you all enjoy this video. Jack O' the Lantern, from the early 1800s. Once upon a time, there was a man named Jack. Now Jack was no ordinary man, for he was a trickster and a swindler. He had a reputation for being a liar, a drunkard, a womanizer, and a thief. So it should come to no surprise to you that a man such as he must have been near death many times during his escapades. Jack didn't give death too much of a thought, for he was confident that he could trick even the devil himself into doing what he wanted. Fortunately for Jack, he would soon be able to test that theory in person. On a cold autumn night, as Jack was walking out in the woods towards his favorite tavern for another night of drink and merriment, there was suddenly a strange figure in his path. It was an incredibly tall man, and this man had skin paler than a ghost, with icy blue eyes that were more piercing than the winter's wind. He was dressed in elegant attire, and his blonde hair and beard were all well trimmed and tended to. His very presence was enough to strike fear into everything around him. Even the wind itself blew around him, as to prevent itself from crossing his path. Jack, never one to show his fear on his face, walked right up to the man. "Good evening, sir. I don't believe I know your face. Are you a stranger in town?" "You could say that," the man said in a deep voice that made the bark on the trees rattle like shaking bones. "I've come quite far to find you, Jack." "Ah, so you've heard of me?" "Myself and many of my colleagues have heard of you," the man answered. "Your colleagues, huh? So who are you exactly?" Jack asked with great suspicion. "I have many names, but my original name was Lucifer." "Well, I'll be damned if it isn't the devil himself," Jack said in disbelief. "Yes, you are. And yes, I am," the devil answered. "Come now, it's time for you to go," the devil said, and reached out to grab Jack's wrist. Jack, being nimble and quick, pulled his arm out of the devil's grasp. "Ah, I'm sorry, sir, but couldn't you afford a poor old drunkard one last drink on God's good earth?" The devil pondered this for a moment before he agreed. "While I dislike your phrasing, I believe there is no harm in obliging your last wish. Lead the way, but you only get one drink." Having reached an agreement, the two continued on towards Jack's favorite bar. Once they had arrived, Jack made no small spectacle of his new drinking pal. "Ladies and gentlemen, today I have been approached by this much-esteemed guest. Could you believe that the devil himself came to drink with me?" "How is that news with you, Jack?" one of the other patrons called back with a laugh. Jack laughed in return. "Always with the great jokes from you, friend." He then sat himself down at the bar. A drink for me and one for my friend, he said to the elderly barkeeper. The barkeeper nodded and handed them both a drink. Jack took his sweet time, savoring his last drink on earth, chattering with his friends, singing drinking songs, and even getting buddy-buddy with the devil himself. But nothing can last forever. The ale mug does indeed have a bottom, and once that mug was empty, the devil stood up. All right, Jack, a deal's a deal. Time to go. Aye, sir, Jack said and stood up, but seemed to remember something suddenly, and turned to the barkeeper. How much do I owe you for the drink, friend? 1 silver coin, the barkeeper answered. Jack nodded and began fumbling his pockets. All I've got are 3 copper coins, but I can't leave without paying ya. He turned to his new friend. You're the devil, right? How about you turn yourself into a silver coin so I can properly pay? I wouldn't want to leave my friend here without paying him my debt. The devil, his reason having slightly loosened due to the alcohol, nodded. I can do that, yes. With a snap of his fingers, the man was gone, replaced by a single silver coin that landed in the palm of Jack's hand. Thank you very much, Jack said. However, instead of paying the bartender, he put the silver coin into his pocket, making sure to place it under a small cross that he had in there. The devil, now trapped inside of Jack's grimy pocket, spoke up. What are you doing? Jack laughed. Who would have thought that tricking the devil would be so easy? If you really were after my damned soul, you would know that I never pay my own tab. The other patrons at the bar were now watching with a cautious curiosity as the scene was unfolding in front of them. Had Jack truly just tricked the devil? Let me go right now, the devil demanded. I will, but on the condition that you don't come back for my soul for another year. Oh, and you give me enough money to last me that year, Jack said. No, that's preposterous. Jack pressed his hand against his pocket, forcing the cross and the coin closer together. What was that, friend? I couldn't hear you. Fine. 1 year and the money, but that's all you get. Jack laughed. Then we have ourselves a deal. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the coin and cross, holding them both between his fingers. Then he stood up onto the bar and faced all the patrons. Let it be known that today, good old Jack tricked the devil himself and escaped the fiery tongues of hell. The patrons all cheered for Jack at his accomplishment. As he put the cross back into his pocket, he flipped the coin off of his thumb. The devil landed on his feet, still refined and carrying himself with confidence, despite the humiliation he just endured. For now, Jack, I'll see you next year. The devil snapped his finger again and vanished into thin air, with a full pouch of coins in Jack's hand. Drinks are on me tonight, everyone! Jack shouted and swung his new purse around. From that day on, Jack was known as the man who had tricked the devil, and came out of it a rich man with a longer life. However, the next year, the devil would come to collect his due, and he did. On a brisk autumn afternoon the next year, Jack was lounging in the shade of an apple tree, when there was a sudden silence that fell over everything. Jack looked up to see the devil staring down at him. Hello, Jack. I hope you enjoyed your last year, the devil said with a stinging annoyance on the tip of his tongue. The always cheerful Jack, however, stood up to greet him. "Hey there, Mr. Devil, my buddy, my pal! How have you been? The 9 Circles been treating you all right?" The devil was unamused, and simply reached out for Jack. "It's time to go." Jack let the devil grab onto his arm. "Ah, yes, a deal is a deal, and all that good stuff, but if I remember correctly, you are kind enough to oblige a man's last wish. Am I right?" The devil nodded and glared at him with a stern suspiciousness. "Good. You see, I'm pretty famished, and there's an absolutely delicious-looking apple hanging from one of those branches up there. I'd try to climb up myself, but I'm so hungry I fear I lack the strength to do so." The devil looked at Jack, then up to the apple, then back at Jack. "I can do that." The irony, not lost on the devil, caused him to let out a chuckle as he began to climb up the tree. "An apple tree, huh? This brings back memories." Jack watched the devil climb the tall tree, and waited until he was up near the branch before he pulled out his knife and carved a cross into the trunk of the tree. The devil, who had just grabbed the apple, jolted with pain, which caused him to drop the apple. "Ow! Jack, what did you do?" Jack caught the apple and began to slice it with his knife. "Oh, me? I just thought this tree would look good with a little decoration. Pretty nice, don't you think?" he said, and ate the first slice of the apple. I should have known that you were planning something again," the devil said. "But you didn't," Jack teased as he ate another slice. "Oh, this apple is really good, thank you." The devil rolled his eyes. "What do you want this time?" "Well, this is gonna start to get a bit boring if we do it every year. So, how about you just, don't come back? Like, you never get my soul kind of situation." "You little..." "Fine," the devil said. "Huh. That was easy. Really, I was expecting you to be a bit harder to convince. I had a whole speech planned and everything. Memorized it, too." "That won't be necessary," the devil sighed. "All right, a deal it is then," Jack said, and with his knife scratched out the cross from the bark. The devil dropped down from the tree, once again landing perfectly elegantly. "Goodbye, Jack," he said, and once again vanished into thin air. After this second year, Jack lived the rest of his days doing what he loved: drinking, partying, sleeping around, and of course tricking people for as much as he could get out of them. But everything ends, and every person has a date. Eventually, Jack did die. But, confident in his deal with the devil, that his soul would never be damned, he marched right up to the pearly gates, expecting entry. However, he was turned away on account of his wicked deeds. With nowhere left to turn, he rushed to the gates of hell, desperate for somewhere to go for the afterlife. It was the devil himself who greeted Jack when he arrived. "Jack, my friend, what are you doing here? I thought you didn't want me to have your soul." Well, you see, the big guy upstairs, he didn't let me in." Jack laughed nervously. Isn't that crazy?" That does sound crazy indeed." The devil nodded calmly, peeling an apple. "So, you're gonna let me in, right?" Jack said pensively. Jack. "I think you know by now that I never go back on my word," the devil said with a satisfied smile. Then what am I supposed to do? Jack asked. Well, since you have nowhere to go find one. Go find one? Jack asked, getting increasingly nervous. Yes, go back out into the world and keep wandering alone until you find a place that will take you. Here, I'll even give you something to help. The devil reached down into the fire and brimstone and pulled out a red-hot coal. He then forced it into the palm of Jack's hand. Jack let out a pained shriek as the coal burned itself into his skin. There you go. Now you have a light to guide your way. The devil's grip tightened with every word, pushing the hot coal deeper and deeper into Jack's hand, until eventually he let go and said, "Now go." Before Jack could even respond, he found himself back on Earth, the hot coal still burning into his hand. He quickly dropped it before collapsing onto the ground. He took a moment to compose himself. He knew that he needed something to help him carry the coal. And after some rummaging around in the dirt, he managed to eventually find and dig up a turnip. Using his knife, that same knife that he had used all those years ago to trap the devil, he hollowed out the turnip and created a small opening at the front. And then he placed the coal inside. After that, he began wandering. A journey that he started so many years ago and still continues to this day, with his turnip lamp in hand. In his life, he was known as Stingy Jack, Jack the Trickster, Swindler Jack, the man who tricked the devil. But now, you all may know him by a different name. This has been the story of Jack o' Alright guys, gals, non-binary pals, thank you so much for watching. I apologize because I know there was some audio mishaps. I still am trying to get used to my new microphone and changing up my editing process to kind of get used to how this microphone works. Also, the allergies do strike again. In case you couldn't tell, I was a little bit sick when making this video, but, you know, Halloween is tomorrow at the date of recording this, so I had to kind of suck it up and record it. So I apologize again for that as well. But I am gonna keep doing these videos. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I want to give a huge shout out to my girlfriend, Dragon Artist 3, for making the art for not just this year's, but last year's, and probably every other year to come, Halloween special. Her Etsy shop will be linked down in the description. Make sure you go favorite that shop and get some things for yourself from her. And with that, guys, gals, non-binary pals, remember to always share your story.
Fill me out with your smile, now the sunshine brings the light.